Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma, and is known for its waterfalls, lakes, springs, caves, and more, some of which are man-made like the Lake of Ozarks. They have the largest rocky terrain between the Rockies and Appalachian Mountains, with the highest peak exceeding well over 2,000 feet. The Ozarks have plenty of state parks that maintains natural parts of the forest while still allowing people to explore and hike their trails, which span over 300 miles. The Ozarks as a whole are hilly and rugged, with a forest that spans over 1 million acres. The Ozark geographical areas aren't really uniquely named. For example, the Ozark Plateau, the Ozark Mountains, Ozark Hill Country, etc.
In addition to native-born Americans, several 100,000 Europeans settled in the Ozarks during the 19th century. The largest numbers came from German-speaking lands. Although a few Germans came early to Missouri, including the so-called Whitewater Dutch who established their settlements in Cape Girardeau County before 1800, most came between 1830 and the Civil War. By 1830, more than a dozen travel books about the Ozarks were in circulation in the German language. These accounts presented a romanticized and exaggerated view of the Ozarks, but nevertheless, they produced results. Countless thousands immigrated from the old county directly to Missouri. At one time, Missouri was the focus of an effort to create a German-speaking state in America. Along with this German influence, immigrants from the British Isles settled in the Ozark Mountain area, and their dialect mixed with existing dialects in a so-called melting pot from surrounding areas of America. Modern phrases intermingled with the archaic Old English, which created a heritage of mutts from not only the British Isles but also Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. The dialects in this area took a very long time to mix, as settlers retained their purity and fancy speech. To this day, people are surprised by the proper sounding vocabulary and phrases used in this region, even while it is presented with a stereotypical hillfolk dialect. Some words and phrases from 16th century England are still used, and the dialect is referred to sometimes as Shakespearean and Elizabethan English. The old usages of the Ozark dialect have drifted out, but there is no denying that the pure dialect is a survival of older English usage, what basically was once the common country and village speech of Old England.
Some people tend to view Appalachian culture and Ozark culture as the same, but there are actually more than a few differences between the two. Before statehood, the Ozarks were home to all kinds of pioneers, like early French, Irish, and German settlers. These settlers helped to shape the culture of the Ozarks. Though the hillmen of the Ozarks are viewed as mainly living their lives revolving around agriculture, trapping, and hunting, 19th century residents of the Ozarks were actually quite active in their communities and the political structure of the time. A big part of the culture is how the hillman identity is embraced and not looked down upon by its residents. Square dances, bluegrass music, and folklore are a big part of the culture. Religion is an important feature in the Ozark region, as many of their main gatherings are centered around the church as fish fries and sing-ins. Annually, there's a festival held known as the Old Time Music Ozark Heritage Festival in West Plains. It celebrates old-time music and the distinctive culture of the Ozark Highlands. Different from its rural counterparts, bluegrass and country, old-time music has its own distinctive sound that makes an important contribution to the complex palette of what we call indigenous American music. Demonstrating the spectrum of art forms from dance fiddling, local jig steps, and gospel singing to the songs, narratives, and ballads that tell the story of a place, to the occupational traditions of blacksmithing, log skidding, spinning, and basket making, artists show how these arts are embedded in the experience of their daily lives and how they fit into the functional and symbolic needs of their community.
Mountain speech has often been romanticized and stereotyped as Elizabethan or Shakespearean, terms that connotate a language frozen in time from the late 17th or early 18th centuries, when immigrants from the British Isles first settled in southern Appalachia. Many of those mountain folk later moved to the Ozarks. The Beverly Hillbillies, a television show that aired from 1962 to 1971, brought the Ozark dialect into homes across America. It was the most watched show on television during its first 2 years, according to Nielsen ratings. This show contains much of the stereotypical things people think of with the Ozarks: moonshining, revivals, the old ways. The majority of media appearances of these dialects portray mountain folk as unintelligent and uneducated. In this video, the family is discussing Jethro's desire to go to college, assuming that he could never be smart enough. Additionally, the character is portrayed himself as unintelligent as he makes remarks about the 3 R's of college. People stereotype mountain people as unintelligent, poor, and primitive just because of the relaxed, drawn-out way that they talk and for the quirky phrases that they use.
Me? Uncle Jed, baby, that college life is a gas. I mean, that's where it's happening.
Don't sound like you're happening to learn much.
Not true, old-timer. We's learning the 3 R's. Riding, raiding, and ransacking. Poor old cat just don't dig. He's so far out, it's pitiful. I mean, come on, Dad. Like, get with it. Swing a little, Pops. Lay some skin on me.
You know, I might just do that.
In the Ozark dialect, there are different variations of pronunciations of vowel and even consonant sounds. For instance, care is pronounced kier, gather is pronounced gether, kettle is pronounced kittle, crop is pronounced crap, until is pronounced until, cover is pronounced kiver. In the following video, you will see a man doing the accent tag demonstrating some of these phonological influences.
Wash, old, theater, iron, salmon, caramel, fire, water, sure, data, ruin. That's another one that's going to be different. If I was wanting to say something's rotten, I'd say it's ruined. But if I was referring to some dilapidated structure, I'd say the ruins.
Some other examples of phonological differences are: chew is almost always chaw to the Ozarker as it was to 17th century England. Poor is poor as it was to Old England. Both heerd and deef are common pronunciations today as they were and still are in some county dialects in England. The words boil and join are often pronounced bile and john as Shakespeare used them, and it is said that English noblemen almost always pronounced yellow as yaller.
Ozark English has seemed to be dwindling over the last few years, as in the younger generation is headed more towards mainstream American English. Previously, they seemed to have particular grammatical techniques that made them unique compared to other forms of American dialect. They contain the completive done, a prefixing, irregular verbs, and different aspects of subject-verb agreement. Examples of this includes, I done told you, he just keeps a bugging me, I'm a fixin' to head y'all's away. The Ozarker has a tendency to use weak verbs rather than strong ones. Bore for beard, caught is catched, drank is drinked, and through is throwed.
If you was to tell me that Jethro had a mountain lion.
I tell you it's true. I sent Jethro to the root cellar, and when he didn't come back, I went to see what was keeping him, and there stood a great big mountain lion licking his chops. He had my baby boy right out from under his hand.
Is the truck gone?
Mountain lions don't eat trucks. They is flesh eaters.
I know that, but I figured if the truck was gone, that might tell us what happened to Jethro.
I told you what happened. He was ate by a mountain lion in the root cellar. Now, you gonna get your gun and shoot him before he eats the rest of the family?
The word et, which is considered bad English but is seen in this video, is often heard in Ozark speech and is a pronunciation still common among Englishmen and is defended by the Oxford Dictionary, which gives the pronunciation as et. In the Hillman speech, one almost always hears the participle et instead of eaten, and it has been in good use for centuries as found in the literature of Shakespeare, Pope, Dickens, and Tennyson, and many others.
Before talking about semantics, it is important to note that the Ozark dialect is not a substandard form of English. The Ozark people do use a lot of Elizabethan expressions, but the general effect is not Elizabethan because their speech is mixed with modern slang and wisecracks. Some of the vocabulary used in the Ozark dialect is goozle as throat, poke for sack, dinner for midday meal, supper for evening meal, middlin for tolerable, passel for a lot, reckon for suppose, sorry for inferior, blinky blinks to sour, hunker down for squat, salad for salad, and chimney for chimney. Some other examples of vocabulary are loosening weed for laxative, booger for either a head louse or a ghost, battling stick as something a woman uses to swat clothes they were washing, airish for a bit cool, and varmint, a variation of vermin. Some of the most common wisecracks in the Ozark dialect are duller than a widder woman's axe, tight as the bark on a tree, nose running like a sugar tree, no use shutting the gate after the mules done got out, scarce as preachers in paradise, thicker than fiddlers in hell, and haired up like a summer pig turd, which means he needs a shave. Much of the dialect of the Ozarks is also common with that of the South. Southerners, as the story goes, are the only people who know the difference between a hissy and conniption fit, with hissy being the lesser of the two fits.